Hi guys, so this is another podcast with horsemanship from Ginny. I'm Yaz, and today we're going to be talking about treats. Do they cause more problems than they solve? The short answer is no, not if you use them right. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later on. How to use them right, how not to cause problems in the future. But first off, I'm going to talk about a comment that I got on one of my YouTube videos where I'm working with Jasper about me using treats with him. So the comment I got was, too much hand feeding, a gentle rub better. Hand feeding can lead to so many future problems. So first off, I'm going to talk about why this is a problematic way of thinking with horses, and it's a very old view, and it's stuck around, and it shouldn't be sticking around. It shouldn't be a problem using treats with most horses. Don't get me wrong, not in every situation, not for everything, but there are plenty of reasons why using treats with horses is nothing but a good thing. If while using treats you are getting problems, either you're using treats for the wrong thing, or you're rewarding at the wrong time, wrong place, or you're doing something wrong, most likely. So let's start with, what is a reward? So a reward is positive reinforcement. Definition of positive reinforcement is the process of encouraging or establishing a pattern of behaviour by offering reward when the behaviour is exhibited. So what does that mean if that doesn't make much sense to anyone? Essentially, you give a horse, a dog, whatever animal you're working with, you give them something they like, something nice, in return for them displaying a behaviour that you want to see more of. Positive reinforcement will increase the likelihood of that behaviour presenting itself again. I'm not going to talk about negative reinforcement, negative punishment. I'm not going to talk about any of that other stuff in the 4 quadrants today, because this is specifically about using treats and using positive reinforcement. So I'm just going to talk about rewards and treats rather than saying positive reinforcement, because it's a mouthful. So rewards and treats are the words I'm going to use to refer to positive reinforcement. So to start with, who decides what is a reward and what isn't? It's not up to us. When we're working with horses, it's not up to me, it's not up to you, it's not up to anyone else around you as to what is a reward. That is solely down to your horse. This will vary depending on personality traits, things that have happened to your horse in the past. So personality traits, environmental reasons, physical ailments going on. So if you've got a horse with ulcers, giving them a nice pat probably isn't the best way to reward them for something, because they're not going to like you touching them. Where they're at in their training, how confident they are, what do they like? Do they like being touched particularly, or do they just tolerate it? Are they a fussy horse or not really? Treats, as on a whole, is a consistent positive reinforcement for all horses. Some horses won't like apples, some horses won't like carrots, some horses don't like polos. You can find a treat that they like. Obviously, if you're dealing with horses with dietary issues, they're either too fat or they've got laminitis or some other issue that makes using treats difficult, then you can start considering other options, or maybe low-fat treats. It depends on the situation. If you've got a horse that's in dire need of losing weight, using treats isn't the best way to train them. So I'm going to talk about now why, in that video specifically, why using a gentle rub would not have been a reward for Jasper. So a lot of horses, touch isn't what we think it is to them. You don't see horses that have just met one another going into the field together and start grooming each other. They've got to sort it out, they've got to get to know each other. It often takes months for 2 horses to become well known enough to each other for them to start allowing one another to groom each other. And then they've got to figure out how the other likes it, how they like it, and there's all sorts of things that go on in horse dynamics as to whether another horse can touch them. Now, we're no different in that sense. Horses don't necessarily like to be touched by every person that walks through the yard, every person that walks through the stable. Some horses do, some horses don't. In my experience, most horses don't like to be prodded and poked by or stroked by every Tom, Dick and Harry that walks past. Just because you're a monkey with a rope halter or a monkey with a head collar doesn't mean they want you touching them. So specifically Jasper in that video, why he, at this stage in time, will not find a pat or a rub or a scratch as a reward. It's fairly simple. He's feral. I've handled him for less than 2 months. Less than 2 months worth of handling that horse has had. Me touching him makes him uncomfortable. He's having to learn to tolerate it to start with, which he's doing at the minute. And then from there, as we create a good association to being touched, he may or may not like it still. He may find it a reward later on. He might enjoy having a good scratch. I'd imagine he will. He's a pony. Most ponies are fairly itchy and they like a good scratch with people. But there's a good chance he just might not like it. He might not like a pat. He might not want to be stroked. He might not find it as rewarding as we think they should find it. All giving Jasper a rub will do after he's very nicely stood for me while I've picked his foot up and picked it out it'll be a punishment to him. All he'll see that as is pressure being added to him, and he'll be less likely to stand there and tolerate me doing it again. Using rewards to build his confidence is the quickest and best way to make him solid in these behaviours as well. The more he gets rewarded, the stronger he's going to become in them, the more confident he's going to become in these behaviours, and the better he's going to understand. And the harder he's going to try. This is the really important bit. Getting horses to try. So often when I come to work with horses, what I'm asking them to do is try for me. Whether they get it right, whether they get it wrong, it doesn't matter so much, especially in the early stages. Just try. And more often than not, that is the biggest argument I'm having with these horses, is whether I can convince them to try for me. Most horses have learnt to stop trying because trying gets them nothing. The only time trying works for them is they get it right first time. Really important for Jasper at the minute that I reward his try, because that's all. If a horse tries for people, they're more than likely going to get it right if it's explained properly to them and if it's asked correctly. Now, my plan is to sell Jasper, so I'm not going to have full control of him for the rest of his life, because he's a Welsh pony. I've got no use for a Welsh pony other than to produce and sell him. I'm not a child, he's too small for me. The best I can do for Jasper is to set him up for life. And that's what I'm doing by using lots and lots and lots of rewards. Don't get me wrong, they will fade out and there will be less of them. But for now, I'm going to keep those the rewards high. Every little thing he does for me, every effort he makes for me, I'm going to reward them as much as possible and as much as I remember and see it. So now let's talk about what issues can be caused using treats. So we've got a few issues that we can get. We can get biting, barging. We can get the horses mugging us for treats. They're the main ones, really. I suppose you can get horses that learn how to sort of half offer a behaviour to try and get a reward. So you see it oftentimes with loading, where horses will put the front feet on, they'll get a treat, so someone will try and coax them up with the treat even further, so they'll stretch and stretch and stretch until they won't, and then they'll back off, and so then they'll put their front feet on and get a treat. And that's a pattern of behaviours that the horses learnt in order to get a treat. All these problems using treats are caused by using them wrong, rewarding at the wrong times, and by rewarding in the wrong place as well. Reward positioning is really important. So how do we prevent biting with treats? Well, a simple answer is we give the horses a solid understanding as to how to earn the treats. Horses start biting with treats when they're given treats for nothing, a lot, and then they suddenly stop getting them, they get frustrated, so they bite people. They don't understand why they aren't getting the treats, and then they get in trouble, and you create a whole plethora of issues from there, and then suddenly it's no more treats for the horse, and they get smacked every time they put their nose near you. Huge problem with using treats. That needs to be avoided. However, biting as a whole isn't entirely problematic. So with Jasper at the minute, I'm learning that when he starts to bite, it's because he's uncomfortable and I'm asking too much from him. It has nothing to do with the treats, with the fact that he's biting me. So not all biting while using treats is caused by treats. If anything, the fact that he's biting me is a sight lot better than him spinning around and kicking me. While I'll still punish the biting, I just have to recognise why it's come out. But I can't reward the biting or ignore it. It needs dealing with. He can't bite me. That's it. But at the end of the day, it's not caused by the treats. Not all biting is caused by treats, and not all use of treats causes biting. So barging, using treats can encourage horses to be very in your space and encroaching on you all the time and pushing on you all the time and barging you all the time and pushing through you. Now this is quite a dangerous behaviour because you get stood on, things break when you get stood on by horses. Things go wrong, you've got 3 horses round you barging you for treats, they could start scrapping and you're in the middle of it. So how do we solve the issue of horses getting bargy around treats? And it's really simple. It's you show them how to earn them again. It's if you step back from me and you stay over there, I will come to you with a treat. You do not come to me to get the treat. I will bring it to you. Now this is something I've learned really quite recently, and it's massively changed how I'm working with horses and what I'm doing with them, and it's created much more enjoyable interactions with horses rather than me demanding things off them and then them offering stuff. And yeah, maybe they tried and I'll release the pressure for them, but it's creating horses that really want to interact and really want to try and they want to train without creating the bargy behaviours. Don't get me wrong, they creep in, but as long as you keep setting that boundary and you're consistent with that boundary, the horses will learn that if they stay back, they will get their treats, and barging won't earn them anything. If horses learn that these bad behaviours that we don't want to see, if they learn that earns them nothing, if anything, it makes them a little bit uncomfortable because they've been told off, they've now got people waving their hands in the face and they want them out of their space, they're going to stop doing it. Horses will not keep repeating behaviours that make them uncomfortable and earn them nothing. So if your horse is consistently barging through you, either it's because they don't know how to do something different, or it earns them something, it gets them something they like, which in their eyes is positive reinforcement, and then so they will repeat that behaviour and you will see more of it. You've also got mugging behaviours, but that's pretty much the same as barging. Horses are mugging your pockets, rustling through your pockets and what you got for me, and they won't get out of your pockets. Again, same thing. Show them how to earn it. What I like to think of it as is make yourself into a human vending machine and the horse has to press certain buttons to get these rewards off you. And in specific scenarios as well, I don't just carry treats around with me all the time. If I want my horse to back up out of my space and I don't have treats on me, I'm not going to reward them for coming into my space and then leaving it again when they know better. Or what I don't want to create is a cycle of behaviours and a pattern of behaviours. So the horse, if you're not careful, what you can teach your horse to do is to push into your space, or they'll be stood out of your space initially. They believe that they've earned themselves a treat. So they'll push into your space, you will push them back out, and then they will earn a treat. And so they learn a pattern of behaviours that earns them a treat, not a single behaviour that earns them a treat. And you have to be careful with this because horses are far better at this than we are. And these patterns can become quite elaborate and they can become really quite complex patterns of behaviours. You can get quite a lot of behaviours staggered together, one after the other, that create that pattern that gets them their reward. And we oftentimes don't see it happening. Not until it's starting to get annoying that this keeps happening, it keeps repeating, and you're having to reward them again. You have to stop the pattern of behaviours. And to start with, it can be quite difficult to recognise where that pattern starts, especially if you've got 5 or 6 behaviours in the pattern. I saw a post on Instagram the other day. I cannot remember for the life of me who put that post up. I've tried to look for it and I can't find it again. But essentially what this post said was that horses' natural instincts they're grazing animals. All they want to do is constantly search for food. They put more time and effort into searching for food than anything else. That is what their instincts drive them to do, and that is what they will constantly try and do. So, all that effort that they put into trying to get treats out your pocket, barging through you, trying to get your treats out your pocket, figuring out these patterns of behaviours to get you to reward them, if you're consistent enough with showing them what earns them their rewards, and they're clever enough to learn lots of different things that earn them their rewards, if you're consistent with it, the horses will put all that effort into doing what you've asked them to do in order to earn that reward. So that covered, I've got a few bullet points here on what to talk about. That covered both on my what issues can be caused and how to prevent them, really. But yeah, just preventing them is being consistent. Don't confuse your horses, and in the early stages, use lots of rewards, even if it means a couple of pony nuts at a time. Do it a lot until your horse can hold it for a duration. With understanding comes speed, duration, and consistency, really. So the better your horse understands how to earn those treats, the quicker they will do the behaviours that you want to see to earn them, and the longer they will be able to hold them for before they start to get fed up and start trying other things. What you want to be really careful of if you do use treats for trading is what you don't want to accidentally cause is an extinction event in their behaviours. So an extinction event in their behaviour is where they understand, say for example, you've got your horse to a point where you can leave them stood for 20 minutes without a reward. You've worked so hard at it that they can stand in one spot for 20 minutes, you can walk away and you can come back. If you leave them there for 2 hours, chances are that behaviour will go extinct. They have tried their hardest to do as they're told, to earn the reward, and it's not working, so they'll stop. And once those behaviours go extinct, they're really hard to convince horses to do them for you again. For long periods of time anyway. You might have been able to get it for half an hour before, but you're going to struggle to get it past 5 minutes again, because the horse doesn't trust you and the horse doesn't believe you. So it's really important when doing these exercises that we also give our horses cues that allow them to break these positions and things like that. I don't do many liberty work, not yet anyway, I might do in the future, but I don't do any liberty work. So for me, at the minute, a big sign for the horse that all this is over is I've taken the red collar off and I walk away. That is a really clear and concise cue for the horse that the session's over, the behaviours aren't wanted anymore, you've done well, and I'll give them a treat after I've taken the head collar off as well, just to prevent horses from spinning and running off as soon as the head collars are off. So I'm now going to talk a little bit about reward timing. So with horses, it's not so complicated. So I learned about all this stuff with rewarding through the dogs and the parrots. So when I worked with parrots and dogs, what I used was a clicker. And you can clicker train horses. There's no harm in clicker training horses. I just feel like with horses it's a little bit unnecessary because pressure and release works so well. And essentially when you're using pressure and release, that release is negative reinforcement, and then when you give a reward, you are topping it up with a positive reinforcement as well. So you reward your horse twice, and the second you remove that pressure, that's no different in my eyes to a clicker, and I see no difference in how quickly horses learn using clickers to just rewarding after you've removed the pressure. If you want to clicker train your horses, go for it. Clicker training is amazing. I just personally feel like it's a bit unnecessary with horses, especially as we already have so many things in our hands at one time when doing stuff with horses. Last thing I want to do when picking out a horse's feet is accidentally click my clicker because it's in the hand of my hoof picker and trying to get a stone out and the horse slams its foot to the floor and goes, right, you owe me a treat. I don't want that. So I prefer not to use clickers with horses. But that's entirely personal choice. If you're going to use a clicker, make sure you charge it first. So now I'm going to go on to what is charging a clicker. Charging a clicker is essentially you stand there, you click the clicker, you give the horse a treat. You click the clicker, you give the horse a treat. It's Pavlov's bell, I think. He didn't use a bell, but that's what they called it, Pavlov's bell. Essentially, using a clicker, when you charge a clicker, what you do is you trigger an animal's thought that food is coming. So if you use a clicker, you're giving them food. And if you're going to use a clicker, it doesn't matter if you're wrong. If you click that clicker and you were wrong about your timing and you did it wrong and you've clicked at the wrong point, that's your fault. You reward your horse regardless. Never ever, if you're using a clicker, give a horse a click and then don't reward them. Because what you don't want to do if you've spent all that time charging your clicker is you don't want to start dumbing it down. Another common problem people have with clickers is when they've charged them, they will use the clicker to get the horse's attention. I've not seen it so much in horse training because I've not done a lot of clicker training with horses and I've not worked with a lot of people who clicker train. But when working with dogs, when people had charged the clicker, what they would often do is click because the dog would then look at them to come get their reward. What a clicker does is it marks the moment that earns the horse the reward. So if, for example, you're wanting your horse's attention and it's just wandering off and you click after you've said their name or something like that, you've called the names, say I'm talking about Jasper, and I've called Jasper 3 or 4 times, he's ignored me, so I click my clicker, he comes over for a treat. To us, that looks like that's worked. The horse heard his name, he heard the click, he came for food. That's not how it works. So when I say the clicker marks the moment in time that the horse got the reward, if you used a clicker in that scenario, in that way, what you've essentially done is rewarded your horse for ignoring you. They've ignored you, and then because they've ignored you, you've clicked and they've come to get their reward. So that's timing. If you're using a clicker and say, for example, the clicker's charged and you're wanting to teach your horse to come when you call it, or in the early stages, what you want to do is something along the lines of you call the horse's name, the horse maybe looks at you, click. That's good enough for me. Early stages, perfect. You looked at me. That's all that matters. That's how small we can break down these behaviours. Just looking at me is a good enough sign for me to give you a reward. And then next time when I call their name, they'll look at me quicker. They're probably already going to start walking over to me. Click. Yep, well done. You come get your reward. What this will also do with a clicker, if this is how you use it, there are several different ways to use it. You can use a clicker and go and take the food to the horse as well. A lot of people use a clicker as the end of the behaviour. So when I was training dogs, I would use a clicker, say they were in a down 50 metres away from me, and I clicked my clicker. They could break that down and they can sprint as fast as they can to come and get their reward. That is what I've used a clicker for, and most people I know in the UK anyway, working with dogs, use a clicker for that same thing. If you don't want your horse to come charging over for a reward, and you want to teach your horse that when I click, I will bring a reward to you, that's fine too. You can do that as well. So that's about timing. If you're going to use it, clickers are really good for marking behaviours. So if you're doing trick training and stuff like that, clickers are fantastic because you might not be using pressure release. You can use, what's the word for it? I can't remember the word. Shaping behaviours. So you can use shaping behaviours. For example, if you want to teach your horse to stand on a mat, You put a mat on the floor, the horse goes and have a look at it, click, well done, you went and stood on the mat, here's a reward. And then the horse will be like, how did I earn that? And that's using a horse's own brain then. You're not guiding them, you're not helping them. They've just, how did I get that reward? I went over to that mat. Next time they go over to the mat, even if they don't stand on it and they just go sniff it, click, well done, you went over to the mat. And you can progress from there. That's how clickers are really useful in horse training, I would imagine, for liberty work and trick training like that. So reward positioning. This is one thing I don't hear talked about much, especially around horses. It's not talked about too much with dogs either, but it was really important when I was doing sport protection, if I wanted certain positions of the dog's head for heel work. So if I wanted when I was doing protection dog sports, I had competition heel work, full competition heel work with my dogs, and part of that is they have their head up and they're looking towards your they're supposed to be looking to your face, but without going into too much depth of detail about dog training and heel work, that's not quite what you're after. However, so you're looking for your dog to be looking up at you. So if then every time I click, I give the dog its reward on the floor, the dog's going to start dropping its head for that reward. So what I want to make sure I do when I reward my dog for its head position, I want to reward them in the head position that I want them in. So this works with horses, especially with what I'm doing at the minute with Jasper, is when I'm doing his feet and I'm grooming him and stuff like that, the last thing I want him to do is to be constantly turning around to face me to get treats. That'll just slow our progress down. It'll end up with me picking the horse's foot up, him turning round to come and get his treat when he feels like he's earned one, and potentially if I've got someone stood on the other side later on doing stuff with him, I wouldn't have a person on each side with him now. Later on, if someone's grooming him while I'm picking his feet out, if he then turns around to get a treat off me because I've put his foot down, he could send someone flying on the other side of him, he could just knock him over, and I don't want stuff like that to happen. So what's really important is he stays straight. He doesn't turn around to come and get his treats. So when I reward him, after I've put his foot down, I will reward him straight in front of him. I don't give him treats when he turns his head round. I did a bit at the start, because obviously there's a progression to this. You don't go, I didn't straight away get him facing forwards all the time, but it didn't take him long to pick it up. And I don't mind him turning his head a little bit. It's more important that his feet stay still. Turning his head is okay after I've put his foot down. During having his feet up in the air, it can knock him off balance and it'll make it harder for him to hold his feet up for me. So the whole point of this is to make everything easy for him so he doesn't struggle in the future with this. So yeah, reward positioning is really important. If I'm teaching my horse to stand back from me, say I'm working with a really bargy horse and I want them to move back, the last thing I want to be doing when I give them a reward is having them stretch forward for me, because not only does that put them on the forehand, it also means if they're leaning right forward to come and get the treat, there's a damn good chance they're going to take another step towards me, and I'm rewarding them for the fact that they're holding themselves back. So if then when they creep forwards and they fall forwards a step, I'm then giving them the treat, they're going to start pushing forwards. That's how you end up with that bargy behaviour. And with horses, even if you're trying to do it correctly and you're trying to reward the horse for being back, if they're leaning forwards and they're leaning really heavily forwards, you're just going to encourage that forward motion to come and get the treats. Again, progression is important in this. If I've only just managed to convince the horse to stand away from me and they want to lean forwards, I'll give them the reward in the early days for that. Effort is more important than getting it right. And if a horse that's always on top of me, I've finally convinced it to stay away from me, and it's trying really hard to stay away from me, it's trying really hard to give me my distance and make things safe for me, I'm not going to stress over the little things. As they get more advanced and they get more confident and more capable of standing away from me, I'll ask them to hold themselves back and just wait for the treat to come to them. Anyway, that's my podcast on treats and why they are good. before I go, would I use treats for all horses I work with? No. There are plenty of horses that don't need treats. They find rewards in other things. There are plenty of horses that, by their personalities, they try really, really hard, just in general, to please people, and just you being like, yeah, well done, that was so good, can be reward enough for a lot of horses, especially super friendly pony types and the sort of Labrador type ponies and horses that you get. Some horses really just, all they want to do is try their hardest for you, and they're just super happy at the fact that you're buzzing with what they've done. So no, treats aren't always needed, but for horses that need a bit of convincing to do stuff for you, treats are the greatest motivator. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give us a like. Give us a comment if you have any questions. I do a live Q&A on my Patreon every fortnight, and I'll be answering all those questions on there. That's available to members only, unfortunately. But I will be posting the lives on YouTube as well for people to watch. So you'll get to see your answers, but you won't get to have the live interactions with me. I hope you enjoyed it. See you on the next one. Bye.